Peanut wasn't just any squirrel. He was a famous one, the kind of fame most animals, and even many humans, could only dream of. With his tiny, nimble hands, mischievous eyes, and knack for posing with a stash of nuts, Peanut had captured the hearts of millions. Every morning, thousands of fans eagerly awaited new videos of Peanut's escapades, his fluffy tail flicking as he darted around his special enclosure in the city park. Peanut even had his own custom-built miniature mansion. It was an elaborate little home with a tiny red door that had become iconic. People would crowd around his enclosure just to catch a glimpse of Peanut popping his head out, peeking through the window, or scurrying around in his little domain. But Peanut's life was about to take a darker turn. Let's cut intro part so that you guys can hear what I am about to say. In a dimly lit government office, a fateful decision was being made. Reports had surfaced that Peanut's growing popularity was more than just amusing. It was becoming a public concern. Crowds of people gathering at the park, daily distractions, and an increasing number of sightseers brought in by the lure of this small creature. Officials were worried that the influx of visitors was causing disturbances and potential safety issues in the park, prompting debates about how to handle this newfound fame. The officials decided Peanut needed to be contained. For the public's good, they claimed. It was a decision rooted in fear of the unknown. What might happen if the crowds continued to swell? The thought of someone getting hurt or a chaotic incident unfolding led them to believe that capturing Peanut was the only option. Late one night, a group of government agents crept into the park. Flashlights cut through the dark, casting long shadows as they moved toward Peanut's enclosure. The park, usually buzzing with life, was eerily silent, and the agents felt a sense of unease settle over them. Their footsteps crunched on the gravel path, echoing as they neared the small, fenced-off area. Inside, Peanut was sleeping soundly, curled up in his miniature bed, blissfully unaware of the danger approaching. The agents exchanged worried glances, each feeling the weight of the moment. They knew they were about to disrupt the peaceful existence of a creature that had brought so much joy to others. But duty called, and they had to see it through. The plan was set, and Peanut's fate was sealed by the very humans who had once adored him. The agents entered Peanut's enclosure carefully, stepping softly to avoid startling him. Just as they reached out to capture him, something inexplicable happened. A soft, low hum filled the air, almost like static, making their hairs stand on end. The atmosphere thickened, creating an unsettling aura around them. Flashlights flickered, the beams dimming as though the light itself was being drained from the park. The very air seemed to grow heavy and charged, as if reality itself had warped. Peanut's fans would later say it was like the universe had taken a breath and held it, just for a moment. It was a surreal experience, one that sent shivers down the spines of the agents who were supposed to be in control. In that instant, Peanut bolted, darting through the agents' hands, slipping through the gaps in their plan. He was there one moment, then gone the next, vanished into the shadows as if he'd simply blinked out of existence. The sudden movement caught the agents off guard, leaving them momentarily stunned. The sound of his tiny feet scampering away echoed in the silence, a reminder of his cunning agility. The agents tore through the enclosure, overturning leaves, shining their flashlights in every corner. But Peanut was nowhere to be found. He had vanished into thin air. Panic began to rise among the agents as they communicated through radios, frantically searching for any sign of Peanut. Little did they know, Peanut had slipped through the cracks into the Backrooms. For those who have heard of it, the Backrooms are a place where things go when they are truly lost. Imagine an endless maze of dim, yellow-lit hallways. A space that feels both old and endless, where the air hums with an unsettling static. Shadows stretch unnaturally, and the dim flicker of fluorescent lights casts sickly hues across decaying wallpaper. This was where Peanut found himself. Trapped in a twisted reality, the corridors stretching on forever with no exit in sight. The very essence of this place seemed to warp time and space, creating an overwhelming sense of disorientation. And somehow, He was changing. The solitude weighed heavily on Peanut as he wandered through the strange environment, feeling both frightened and oddly exhilarated. The air was thick with a palpable energy, and he sensed that something was watching him, something both sinister and curious. As he navigated the never-ending maze, he felt his playful spirit begin to shift, his demeanor darkening. This new realm was not just an escape. It was an influence that began to seep into his very essence. The Backrooms, with their haunting emptiness, seemed to embrace him, transforming the innocent squirrel into something else entirely. His surroundings echoed with whispers, teasing the edges of his consciousness, and Peanut was left to ponder what kind of fate awaited him in this surreal limbo. Meanwhile, the agents returned to their office, unaware of the strange, otherworldly journey Peanut had embarked on. They were frustrated, complaining about their failure and brushing off the night's bizarre events as a glitch in the system. Peanut, they reasoned, was simply gone. The agents attempted to distract themselves with routine tasks, but the unsettling feeling from the park lingered in the back of their minds. But as the days went on, odd things began to happen in their office. Agent Thompson, a seasoned official who prided himself on his rational mind, was the first to sense it. Walking down the long hallway one evening, he felt a prickle on the back of his neck, as if someone or something was watching him. He paused, peering into the dimly lit corners, straining to see beyond the shadows. He turned quickly, his eyes scanning the empty corridor behind him. But it was just him, or so it seemed. The silence of the building felt suffocating, and he couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in his own workplace. Then he heard it, a faint scratching sound, distant but unmistakable, echoing through the silent office. He paused, his heartbeat quickening. The sound grew louder, inching closer, then faded into silence. Thompson dismissed it, convincing himself it was nothing more than his imagination, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. But the next night, it happened again, and this time, it was louder, closer. The unsettling feeling transformed into anxiety, causing Thompson to glance over his shoulder more often as the atmosphere in the office shifted. He realized they were no longer just guardians of Peanut. They were being watched in return. The other agents soon experienced similar eerie phenomena. Agent Rivera, known for her sharp instincts, felt an unsettling presence lingering just out of sight. As she moved through the office hallways, she caught glimpses of a small shadow darting in her peripheral vision. Low to the ground, quick, always disappearing before she could fully see it. It felt as if they were being hunted, and she tried to shake off the feeling, but the whispers, they were getting harder to ignore. Each agent felt themselves being drawn deeper into an unseen web of fear. The scratching sounds grew more persistent, echoing down the hallways at odd hours. Lights began to flicker in certain parts of the office, casting strange shadows that twisted along the walls, shadows that looked almost familiar. The environment that had once felt safe was morphing into a sinister maze, each sound and shadow feeding their collective dread. In the early hours of the morning, when the office was nearly empty, the building seemed to shift. Hallways appeared longer, doors led to nowhere, and the agents felt an unshakable sense of isolation, as though the office itself was watching them. With every corner turned, the agents were met with a growing dread that perhaps they were not as alone as they thought. They began to question their reality, wondering if Peanut's disappearance had awakened something malevolent within the walls of their own domain. One fateful night, as the agents huddled around the conference table, tension thick in the air, they decided to confront their fears head-on. They gathered every piece of evidence, every strange occurrence, trying to rationalize what was happening. The atmosphere was charged, filled with anxiety and uncertainty. But as they discussed their experiences, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness before bursting back to life with a blinding flash. In that moment, the shadows converged, and from them, a figure emerged. It was Peanut, transformed, no longer the playful squirrel that had once delighted millions. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, his once fluffy tail now trailing dark energy. He gazed at the agents, a deep knowing in his expression, as if he was no longer bound by the limitations of his former life. The agents were rooted in place, their mouths agape as they took in the horrifying transformation before them. You wanted to keep me caged, but I am free now. You'll understand what it means to be trapped. The agents felt a chill run down their spines. The room warped around them, shadows twisting and curling, enveloping them in a tangible sense of dread. Peanut had become the embodiment of their fears, an unwitting messenger from the Backrooms, seeking revenge for their attempts to confine him. They were not just facing a squirrel, but a manifestation of their own hubris and misunderstanding. As Peanut stood before them, the air thick with a haunting energy, he reached out, and the very fabric of reality began to fray. The walls of the office morphed into endless corridors, each hallway twisting into darkness. Peanut's laughter echoed eerily, reverberating off the walls as he revealed the truth of the Backrooms, the endless cycle of loss and entrapment that awaited those who dared to underestimate the unseen forces that lurked beyond the veil of reality. And as the agents realized their fate, they understood. Peanut was not just a victim. He was a harbinger of doom, a reminder that sometimes the things we seek to control will inevitably turn against us. The boundaries between their world and the Backrooms began to blur, and the office became a labyrinth, with Peanut as its king. So, dear viewers, next time you encounter a creature or phenomenon that seems harmless, remember Peanut. Sometimes the things we cherish the most can lead to the darkest paths. Stay vigilant, stay curious, but above all, beware what you seek to possess. Are you prepared to face the unknown? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales from the depths of the unexplained.